Is this Jane Wick? Let's find out. Hello Fanatics, I'm Dylan Phillips, and this is the Film Fanatic Review bringing you Atomic Blonde, starring Charlize Theron, James McAvoy, and John Goodman. First, we'll tell you what the movie is about, and our initial thoughts. Then we'll move on to our spoiler-free likes and dislikes. We'll finish up with some spoiler-heavy thoughts on this film, and our final word. Atomic Blonde follows the story of an undercover MI6 agent who is sent to Berlin during the Cold War to investigate the death of another agent and recover a list of exposed ones. Overall, this is a fun action flick. It doesn't bring anything new to the genre, and it isn't quite John Wick, but it does remind me of a different character. For what I liked about this film, let's start off with the cast. James McAvoy can do no wrong. Every role that he takes on, I just find very charismatic and fully developed, and no matter how bad the movie is, the shining moment seems to always be his performance. Sofia Boutella also gets a more dynamic role in this movie and allows her to show more of her acting range. And Charlize Theron, she is one badass heroine. This is one of the most entertaining female-driven action stories that I've seen. Oh, and John Goodman's in this movie, and he basically does what you would expect from John Goodman. This film certainly delivers on what the trailer showed us, and that is a lot of action and a lot of sex. Now, I'm going to say that as much as this movie has been seen as the female James Bond or the female John Wick, I saw it falling more in line with the movie The Transporter, and I'll explain that more in the spoiler section. The third act has one of the best hand-to-hand fight sequences that I've seen in any movie to date. It had grit, it felt real, and the editing in that scene alone amped up the tension in the story, and I really enjoyed the conclusion of this film. However, the characters aren't very well developed in this movie. Aside from McAvoy's performance as Percival, the rest of the characters are a bit dull and bland and one-dimensional, if anything. They don't really have any flaws to their characters, and it just didn't help me invest as much into certain characters throughout the story. Also, while Sofia Boutella did get to show off more of her acting range, she was also severely underused. Now onto the soundtrack, which was essentially 80s pop songs thrown over action sequences, and they weren't even choreographed. It was just action sequences with these songs blaring over them, and then they'd abruptly stop, and that just kind of takes away from the tension and atmosphere of the movie. But my biggest concern with this movie is that it doesn't really bring anything new to the spy genre. It's the exact same story we've seen for the millionth time, and it just keeps doing the same thing over and over again. The story tries to be too clever for its own good and ends up becoming this disjointed mess of a movie thanks to some non-linear storytelling. It's again a matter of style over substance. And that's where I'll end our spoiler-free thoughts on this film. If you want to hear our final word or rating of this film, pause now and click the link in the description, because now it's time for spoilers. First off, let's discuss the tone of this film. Now, a lot of people from the trailers were saying that this was going to feel like the female John Wick or female James Bond, but that really isn't the case. Now, to be fair, it does have a lot of similarities merely because it's in the same genre, but it's in its action sequences where it differs. What made John Wick so entertaining was its gun choreography, and Atomic Blonde just doesn't really have that. It relies more on hand-to-hand combat similar to the Bourne series as well as the Transporter. However, when the action gets going in the third act, it really revs it up, and I'm talking about the long take in the stairwell as well as the final hotel scene. And that's the problem with this film. The trailers made us expect these huge action sequences, and instead we got a lot of meandering through this Cold War espionage, and everything leading up to these final two action sequences were a bit disappointing. Now onto the story issues. There are a few good twists and turns in this movie, but for the most part the story is quite confusing as to who's on what side, and it's a bit difficult to decipher what's going on thanks to the non-linear storytelling. The fact that Charlize Theron's character is shown on screen alive after the events that she's going to now tell us about takes away from the tension and gives no real stakes to the story because we know she's gonna survive. And to me, the best scenes were the apartment fight scene, any scene with Percival, the scene that reveals her true allegiance, the final hotel fight sequence, and then the best one to me, which was the long take that started with her defending Spyglass in the stairwell and ended with them in the car. So, with the thoughts heard, here's our final word. Atomic Blonde is a fun neo-noir Cold War spy thriller that relies more on style than substance. While the story isn't groundbreaking and the pacing can get confusing, the characters in action make for a badass spy flick. This film is entertaining, but to me it needed a little bit more gun violence, so I'm gonna give Atomic Blonde a 7. Thanks everybody for watching our review. Are you planning on seeing Atomic Blonde? Or if you've already seen it, do you have something to add? What did you think of the story? Let us know in the comments below. I'm Dylan Phillips, and this has been the Film Fanatic Review. If you liked this video and you want to see more, hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Check out our latest If You Liked video where we recommend movies similar to the film Rough Night. Don't forget to follow us on our social media. And until next time, Fanatics, keep it real.